Welcome to part 2 of this 7-part mini-series, in which we visualize the paths taken by the various key figures during the events of the Great Calamity. If you haven't watched the previous part, which covers Link and Zelda, be sure to check that one out first, as we will skip some of the introduction established in that part. In this episode, I will be joined by Hyrule Gamer. We have been wanting to collaborate for a while now, and fate once again meddled with our plans when Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity was unexpectedly announced. However, we will persevere. So I decided to cover this one with him at my side. After you're done watching this video, be sure to head over to his channel and check out his video about the unseen parts from Breath of the Wild, which we will see in their prime in Age of Calamity. As always, a link will be in the description and in the end card. Just like last time, we will be pausing the narrative at specific moments to inject a suggestion for a possible gameplay section. Now, without further ado, let's jump right back into it.
As soon as Revali witnessed the honours of the Calamity from afar and reported Ganon's return to the rest of the party, the first priority for the 4 pilots was of course to make their way to each of their respective divine beasts. Urbosa tags along with Link and Zelda through the promenade, the canyons, and then Kakariko village. Still accompanied by Link and Zelda, they make their way down to Sahasra Slope, at which point she parts ways with the hero and princess. Her goal is to meet up with Van the Boris, who is located in the vast sand sea of her home province, the Gerudo Desert, which isn't exactly close, especially on foot. When Link and Zelda turn right at the bottom of Sahasra Slope, Urbosa takes the left path across the Aegis Bridge. From there, she treks past Bettree Lake and takes the Owlin Bridge to reach the East Point, and subsequently moves west along the foot of the Great Plateau, past the other outposts located there. It's safe to say that the paths the champions will traverse towards their divine beasts will be important, and depicted through gameplay. The many outposts which span across the edge of the Great Plateau played a crucial role during the Calamity, as it is through here that the evacuation line towards Fort Tenno was made possible, with soldiers creating a defensive line and keeping the fleeing citizens safe in the process. Since Urbosa crossed right through this section, it is possible that she played an important role in helping to defend the outposts, while on her way to Van the Boris. Although it is likely too early at this point for any guardians to have arrived here, we have seen that monsters such as bokoblins and moblins also took part in the attack. In Breath of the Wild, the ruins of these outposts are crawling with monsters, so it's not too far-fetched to assume that the initial defense of the outposts was against monsters, rather than guardians.
After potentially assisting the Hylians at the outposts, Urbosa continues on her way to Gerudo Desert. She follows the road that passes by the Great Plateau, then heads south across the Dig Dog Suspension Bridge and into Gerudo Canyon Pass. From there, she moves through the Gerudo Canyon to make her way towards the desert. Gerudo Canyon is a path without any branching paths. There's a good chance that this will be a playable section as well, since it's a great way to force a linear style of battling your way through the narrow canyon. If the previous scenario turns out to be true and Urbosa did indeed help with the defense of the outposts at the Great Plateau, this would also justify the presence of guardians inside the canyon, as by this point they could have arrived this far from the castle in pursuit of Urbosa and her divine beast. Now, this is where we come to a point where the game might ignore some of the information provided by creating a champion and comes up with its own version of events. In the Age of Calamity trailer, we see her fighting Yiga clan members in Gerudo Town. Not only that, but she's wearing her blue champion's cloth while doing it, something she didn't receive until right before the Great Calamity. I think it's unlikely that Urbosa would take such a massive detour only to return to Spectacle Rock afterwards. Getting to her divine beast is the main objective and of utmost importance in the strategy to fight Ganon. With this possible inconsistency, we are going to cover 2 different options, both of which have evidence supporting it. Option 1 would be that the attack on Gerudo Town, despite the presence of the champion's cloth, still takes place before the Calamity, at the very least 1 day before, since on the actual day of the Calamity she's at the promenade, nowhere close to the Gerudo region. In this case, the path laid out by creating a champion stays true. She moves up the quarry at the end of the canyon and straight up to Spectacle Rock. This section would probably still fall under the gameplay scenario mentioned earlier, where you fight your way through the canyon, then up the quarry and towards Vana Boris. The evidence supporting this lies in the many dead guardians found at both the quarry and atop the mountains on the way to Spectacle Rock. The only thing working against it is the fact that they are also found way beyond Spectacle Rock on the other side of the mountains close to the Lome Labyrinth. Option 2 would be that the attack on Gerudo Town does take place during the Calamity. If this is indeed true, we have to come up with a possibility as to why Urbosa would travel all the way out here rather than to Spectacle Rock when there's so little time to lose. In which case, I propose that Vana Boris may not be located on Spectacle Rock initially, but rather close to Gerudo Town. And this would make sense since nobody knew when Ganon was going to show up, and in the days and weeks before, the champions had been practicing to get their beasts under control. Spectacle Rock isn't exactly the most ideal location to do this, since its peak is quite narrow with very little room for movement. Instead, it would be more effective to use the huge open space of the desert to perform these kinds of exercises. It's also noteworthy that in this memory, we actually see Vana Boris parked in the desert, which gives some credence to this theory. But I want to reiterate that if the attack on Gerudo Town indeed takes place before the Great Calamity starts, then the next gameplay scenario is basically useless, and we can just skip right to Vana Boris on Spectacle Rock.
With this new path in mind, Urbosa makes her way to her Divine Beast, only to realise that Gerudo Town is under Yiga attack. While her task as pilot of Vana Boris is crucial, she is also the chief of Gerudo. As such, she probably wouldn't leave her people to their fate, and may decide to join the battle briefly to help defend her home and keep the civilians out of harm's way. After disposing of most of the Yiga and letting the Gerudo army take care of the rest, she boards Vana Boris and takes her up to Spectacle Rock. With her powerful laser ready to take aim and fire, Ganon uses his malice to corrupt Vana Boris, trapping Urbosa inside. To make matters worse, the malice which infects the giant machine manifests into the monstrous phantom we've come to know as Thunderblight Ganon. We could put this next part up as a possible gameplay scenario, but I think it's pretty safe to say that this won't be necessary. It would be very strange if the actual fight between Urbosa and Thunderblight wasn't playable, so we're just going to assume it will be. And we all know how this is going to end. After a fierce battle between the Phantom and Champion, Urbosa is eventually bested by Ganon's puppet and killed in the process. Her spirit is trapped within the walls of the very machine she was destined to pilot. Here, she will linger for the next 100 years. Urbosa's cruel fate is just one of the many sad moments awaiting us in Age of Calamity. She fought valiantly and gave it her all, but the unexpected turn of events at the hands of Calamity Ganon caught her off guard, and it won't be until 100 years later when Link wakes up that she will finally get the chance to take revenge on the monster which took her life away so unexpectedly.